Hello, everyone. I'm Tracy, and I'm here with Shane. And we have a very interesting video going into the official name is the Corral fire, but it was very close to a town named Tracy. So we've been personally calling it the Tracy fire just for fun. So we might say Corral, we might say Tracy. This fire took place in Northern California on the 1st of June, right? Was it 1st?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're here for the premiere, thank you so much for participating. If you want to support the channel, you can send a super thanks or a super chat. And please, if you have not yet subscribed yet, please do so before you leave, and like, comment, and share this video with as many people as possible. We're going to be showing you some evidence and go into the details about the Corral fire, and then bring in some similarities with the aftermath from Lahaina. So I'll let Shane start his presentation.
All right. Thanks, Tracy. So by now, many of you have probably heard about the fire in Tracy, California, and I just want to go into it and give you guys some information. So this fire, like she said, officially occurred on June 1st of 2024, and it was eventually 100% contained at 14,168 acres total being burned. So now I'm going to show some more stats here. And it was in San Joaquin County, which is also adjacent to Alameda County, which is where Livermore National Laboratories is, where the fire originally started. So here's a before image, a satellite photo of the before. You can see Tracy, California is in the center north of this photo. And then here's the after photo showing the burn scar. So that burn scar is 14,100 acres roughly. And now I want to show this clip, this news clip from the day of.
The 2024 wildfire season is in full swing as firefighters work to put out and mop up the first and largest wildfire in the state, just east of Livermore, the Corral fire.
All right, so that was them talking about the Corral fire that was east of Livermore, and I have another news clip that I want to play for you guys.
Dramatic images pouring in overnight of the Corral wildfire battle. The California Department of Transportation closed parts of Interstate 5 as dark plumes of thick smoke impacted driver visibility. Homes near Tracy, California, that's about 60 miles east of San Francisco, were forced to evacuate as the fire expanded to more than 17 square miles.
All right, so in the first clip, you saw that June 1st is the introduction, or the June 1st is the beginning of fire season in California, and it just so happens that they had a major fire on June 1st. So that was perfect timing for that. All right, and in the second video, you did see firefighters lighting a line of fire, and that was actually a controlled burn that's known as a control line or a fire line, which is used as a fire break. So what they do is they burn a line of area before the fire front gets there, so that by the time the fire front arrives, then the already burned area acts like a fire break to prevent the fire from going where you don't want it. Okay, so now I want to show this article that talks about the fire, but it also mentions Interstate 580 remains closed. So there was road closures that day, which involve 3 different roads. So this is the Tracy Triangle, which is comprised of Interstate 580, Highway 132, and Interstate 5.
But yeah, I have a little insight. Being in California, the 5 is a major freeway that goes all the way from San Diego through Sacramento. So by closing the 5, or even a lane in the 5, is a pretty big imposition on traffic.
Right. And in order to close all 3 of these roads, there would have had to have been at least 3 roadblocks. And the most efficient way to do this would be to roadblock at each of the corners of the triangle. And so I do have a video of one of the roadblocks. Now, I'm not certain which one this is yet, but we will be able to narrow this down. And there may, over time, there might become videos of the other roadblocks as well. Here it is. All right, so as you can see, there was a roadblock at one of those intersections or one of the corners of the triangle, but I also have a video that talks a little bit more about the other roadblocks, and it also has an interesting message at the end.
But this is why 132, 580 are shut down, because you just can't see. You have the mixture of the wind, zero visibility, especially now at night. This is just not going to be safe. So this perspective is really helpful to show us essentially what the inside of this area looks like. So thank you to the viewer who sent us this. They said they were only able to see where they were going because of the cameras on their Tesla. So we hope that everyone is staying safe, and now that everything is shut down, really obeying those rules.
Now that everything is shut down, really obey those rules. So if you see a roadblock, their message is to obey the rules. All right, so now I want to go to some aerial footage.
Point out really quick before you move on, for those less familiar, during the fire in Lahaina, those that obeyed the rules very likely perished in their cars, and the ones that did not obey survived, for those who are not as familiar.
Right. And I guess to backtrack a little bit, I want to show this graphic again. So if they did roadblock the three sides of this triangle and Tracy is located inside of it, I don't know where they were expected to evacuate to if they couldn't use any of the three roads that surrounded them. All right. So now we're going to go to another aerial video. So I showed you some aerial footage, but then here's some more. So what we're looking at is the south edge of the fire right now, and Tracy orders it to the north. And here you see a fire line. So that's actually a control line or a fire line that's meant as a fire break, and it's supposed to burn down to the black area away from the road to prevent the fire. All right, so what could have caused this fire? We're going to go into a few different possibilities, and we're just going to present the information in a fair and balanced way so that you can decide for yourself whether this was climate change, an accident, or intentional. However, CBS seems to have all the answers already, and they have said that it's climate change. And so they say, spring has arrived earlier and warmer, which caused a quick melting of the snowpack, and it has dried out the vegetation. And we have another clip that I want to play to back up the climate change narrative.
And then the prevailing winds coming in out of the north-northwest could be gusting pretty strong. The reason we're seeing some strong winds here now is the atmospheric river that's affecting the Pacific Northwest.
We're getting the wind and no rain.
All connected, right? I wish we could get the rain from it. I mean, heavy rain, but it's just not the heavy rain that we need.
And it's tough because it is going to be a very hot week. And so for firefighters, they will be dealing with triple-digit temperatures, and this fire is only 50% contained.
Yeah.
So not only is it hard on their bodies for battling the fire, but also it's very hard for containment lines because it's hot, it's windy, it's dry. It's the perfect setup for further spread.
All right. So you saw there that they're giving their reasons for, why the fire was as bad as it was. And according to the climate change narrative, it's been hotter and drier. However, California did just have an atmospheric river, which brought plenty of rain to the area. Now they are still around average rainfall for the year. So for the last year, they've received about the same average of rainfall that they have in previous years. And another thing also is that they claim that the rain they have received recently due to the atmospheric river actually contributed to the fire because it caused an overgrowth of the vegetation that ended up catching fire. So it depends. So whether there's more rain or no rain, they're going to use that as an excuse for climate change contributing to the fire.
Yeah,
All right,
and another thing is it said it was a warmer than normal spring. It's
yes.
not. And I've spoken to people in Northern California. I'm in Southern California. This spring or summer is unusually cool. Like today, I think when I was driving around, it was 66. Normally in Southern California, it's closer to 86. And we were even told a heat wave was going to come and produce triple digit temperatures. And that did not happen. It didn't even get what I would call warm. So I would disagree with those statements we just saw.
Right. Yeah. According to the narrative, there was supposed to be a heat dome moving into California that was going to produce triple digit temperatures for the remainder of the week. But as far as I know, California never did reach triple digit temperatures anywhere, especially near the burn zone. And the heat dome was practically non-existent.
Or maybe it broke.
Or maybe it broke. But the point is that that narrative is at best inaccurate, if not potentially misinformation. All right. So now, if it's not climate change, then what else could it be? Well, we have a few news clips that go into that as well. So I'm going to play those for you now.
You can see how close the fire is getting to some of the homes there.
Fire started about 2 o'clock this afternoon along Corral Hollow Road near a Lawrence Livermore test site. Now, this isn't near Livermore. It's about 27 miles east of the lab. But according to the lab's website, that is where they develop explosive materials. The lab was doing control burns in the area this week, but Alameda County fire officials say that tonight's fire has no connection to those control burns.
They did a control burn on Friday as far as the firefighters. They don't believe they caused the fire, claiming that when they left this area, the fire was completely out.
And I mention that because I can tell you that the firefighters, they were doing a controlled burn in this particular area on Friday. They say the fire was completely out. They don't think they were the ones who accidentally caused this fire. Of course, they're not worried about the cause just yet.
Of course, they're not worried about the cause just yet. They'll get around to that eventually. And I have another new clip.
Sorry, real quick. In Maui, before the major Lahaina fire, there was a morning fire controlled that had been, they considered contained, and they don't think that caused the main fire, but we don't know for sure.
Just to clarify, the morning fire in Lahaina was not a controlled burn, but it was declared as contained at that point. So at the point of 100% containment, it can be considered to be also controlled at that point. Okay, so I have one more clip that I want to play, and this is some aerial footage from a helicopter, and this is some footage of what might be a controlled burn, although it appears to be a very unorthodox version of a controlled burn. All right, so what you see here is an area of the fire which is relatively far from the residential houses or even any of the streets that were near Tracy, California. And you can see a portion of grass that's burning, and there's a couple of figures, very small, near the leading edge of that fire. And if you watch them, you can see what they're doing. And it looks as if they are starting a fire. And the firefighters were starting controlled burns. They were doing control lines as fire breaks. But this area of the fire is a very unorthodox area for any sort of fire line or control line to act as a fire break. Because as you can see, the wind is actually traveling from west to east We are looking eastward in this photo, and the wind is blowing towards Tracy, California. So this is actually the southwest, the western edge of the fire. And there's no need to start a controlled burn on this side of the fire because it's traveling the other direction. But as you can see, they're spreading the fire line here. The guy's walking and the fire spreads where he walks. Now, as the camera will eventually zoom out, you're going to see that this is not near a road or near a residential area, and it's not even on the side of the fire that threatens any structures of any kind. So the fact that they're doing a quote unquote controlled burn in this area is very unorthodox for controlled burn techniques.
And something that makes it unusual that they would start a controlled burn in, first of all, the beginning of what they said fire season. Also, they said that there were very high winds this day. It just doesn't seem like an appropriate time to be doing a controlled burn.
Right. Yeah, the winds were 30 to 60 miles per hour, which is a bad time to be doing a controlled burn. Now, as they zoom out here, you can see that this area is nowhere near, it's not on the right, it's not on the side of the fire that's advancing, and it's not on the side of the fire that's near a road or a residential area. So what were they doing burning in that area? It almost just looks like they were just increasing the acreage of the burn scar, if anything. So anyway, so that was the one video I wanted to show you that looked a little bit suspicious as far as the excuse for a controlled burn goes. All right, so now we're going to switch gears a little bit, and I want to show an article from MSN. So MSN here reported that the fire broke out Saturday around 2:40 near the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. Now, we've heard various reports from the news and from other, agencies and organizations that the fire occurred somewhere between 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock p.m., which is important because the firefighters claim that their controlled burn lasted until around 3 p.m. and that they actually were in the area of the fire until about 3 p.m. So if that puts the firefighters leaving the area at 3 p.m. on Saturday, then they would have been there at the time of the flare-up if that's what happened. All right, so I just wanted to let you guys know that there's an inconsistency with the timing of the beginning of the fire. It could have been as early as 2 o'clock. It could have been as late as 3 o'clock. But the firefighters claim to have stayed there until 3 o'clock p.m. And if they had been there, they should have noticed the flare-up. All right.
So really quick, I just want to point this is coming from the website of the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, and they provide unique capabilities and innovative solutions to stem proliferation of nuclear, chemical, and biological weapons of mass destruction. So that lab develops weapons of mass destruction, as said on their website.
Yes, they do develop nuclear capabilities, but they also develop deterrence and countermeasures for nuclear capabilities, which would also include, I'm not going to say the word, but we all know what can make nuclear weapons obsolete. Anyway, so now that would be actually a great segue into the next thing that I wanted to report on. So this isn't me saying this. This is another expert. His name is Robert Brame. He's a forensic arborist who's been visiting fires for, I guess, 30, 40 years. And he's been to hundreds of fires. And, or at least I think he's been to hundreds. He's been to fires hundreds of times. And he's now visited 41 separate fires, of which he thinks only maybe 3 are natural. So now we're going to we're going to look at his reasons for why this fire might have occurred. And he says that he analyzed the Corral fire near Tracy, California again today. This was his second visit. Fence posts burned mostly where the nails or screws were attached. All vehicles that burned had their windows melted out, aluminum rims melted out, and many eucalyptus trees with leaves just 2 feet from the ground refused to ignite. Also, Brucia or Aleppo pine also refused to ignite. Neighbors' fences 100 feet away that were out of the fire footprint had their fences burn, but only where the nails were attached and nowhere else. He says all pictures are on his best camera and he'll download them tomorrow. He did upload some of those photos today, which we will show. He says it's the same thing that he finds at every aftermath, no different. He uses the D word, and he says polyester cord tires unaffected near the freeway, while steel belted radials were missing all their rubber. And we also have a photo of that as well. I guess this is the beginning of their fire season, which it actually is. So it was the first day of fire season, and they had a fire.
And
the fire
Shane,
supposedly started. Yeah.
Shane, who is Robert Brame, for those who don't know who that is?
Robert Brame is a forensic arborist, which an arborist is a tree expert. So he's an expert in trees, and he's also an expert in how trees burn. He's visited several fires. He's visited 100 times to like 41 different fires over 30 to 40 years. And so he has a lot of experience in this, and he knows how to tell whether it's a natural fire or something else. So, yeah, so that's his opinion on this. And we're just giving you guys the information and the facts as they are. And we're going to let you guys make up your own mind as to whether this was climate change, an accident, or intentional. All right, so that covers his post. But I also want to go to now a video that we have. There was one house that burned. They claimed only one structure burned, but there were other outbuildings that burned that were not homes, but they may have belonged to an industrial business of some sort. So I'm going to go to a video right now to show you guys that.
The fire burned right up to the backyards of most homes before dying off, but one home on Bernard Road was not so lucky. It was the only major structure lost in the blaze, along with a number of vehicles parked on the property.
Okay, so that house that was destroyed, let's see. Yeah, that was the supposedly the only structure that was lost. And so now I'm going to show you another clip of that property.
Yeah, devastating loss. Fortunately, this older couple did get out of their home safely, unhurt, as did the hundreds of people who were evacuated under evacuation orders out here. And we did learn that this was, from CAL FIRE just a short time ago, the only home that was lost in the fire, along with a few outbuildings and a lot of vehicles on this property. And the people, like you said, were able to just barely get out. They weren't even able to grab their most precious belongings like family photographs and jewelry. Barely just got out of the house. The fire really blew up Saturday afternoon when 30-mile-per-hour sustained winds and gusts up to 60 miles per hour pushed the flames across thousands of acres, mostly dried grasses and some brush, but did lose this house. And a CAL FIRE information officer told us higher humidities and lower temperatures, even with these winds that are still fairly strong, helped the 400-plus firefighters make progress on the Corral fires Sunday and last night, even though the winds, as I said, have remained. It's now 75% contained and in mop-up, and she says that is the plan for the rest of the day.
All right. So notice that he said even with the high winds, the lower temperatures and the higher humidity was enough to assist the firefighters in containing that fire. So the wind is not the only factor. All right. So we're going to go into some details on some photos of that property, which I'm going to show now. This is shows where the stove was, where the house used to stand. And then there's also a car in the foreground that has the windows melted out. We can't see if the aluminum itself is still intact or not, but it appears that the glass is not intact. And Robert Brame actually visited this property, and he went up close and looked inside the cars, and he said the glass was melted as opposed to broken. And another thing I want to point out here is that adjacent to this car, I wouldn't say directly adjacent, but within 20 to 30 feet, we have this wooden fence here with grasses and everything that are not necessarily burned away. They might be wilted or desiccated, but you can see that the grasses here are obviously not burned. Okay, so then another photo of this property shows more vehicles that have been burned. None of them have their windows, and some of the trees here have been burned, but you can see that there are also trees like right behind the truck that have not burned as well. And then here's the footprint of the house itself. As you can see, most of the grass burned to a charcoal black color, which is the way a natural fire would burn. But the house itself appears to have been calcinated into a white gray dust. Now, calcination is a little bit different than combustion. And when calcination occurs, it produces more of a white gray powder than combustion does, which produces black charcoal soot. All right, so I'm going to show a picture from Maui. This shows the buildings in Maui that were also reduced to a white gray dust as opposed to a more black charcoal. Now, you can see black spots in this photo where there was some combustion that did occur, but it looks like most of what occurred was calcination of the solids, at least. All right, and then here's another photo from Maui that shows the houses reduced to more of a white and gray dust. All right, so now here's another area of that property. This is the end of the driveway at the corner of their property. And it looks like there may have been some structure here that has been burned away, but it looks like for the most part, the color scheme indicates that it could be natural combustion. But when you look at the automobiles, the melted glass and things like that indicate an energy equivalent to temperatures around 2,700 degrees, which is about 1,000 degrees hotter than a natural wood fire would burn. And most accelerants don't actually burn long enough to melt large pieces of aluminum or glass.
All right,
Okay,
Shane,
so
before
now,
you go back,
yeah,
just because, and we talk about this, and I thought maybe it would be good for our audience to hear this, because I personally do not give those pictures of those cars as evidence of these weapons, just because, first of all, I can't see any melted glass and I can't see melted metal from here. Okay. And glass, when a car is on fire, there's so many things you don't know unless you're actually there. And those windows are often, they will break, they'll shatter. Okay. So I don't know if those were burned or I don't know if they were shattered or they melted. I think they were shattered, but I know a lot of people disagree or agree. I'm just personally very critical of using these cars as evidence of directed energy. And I know a lot of
right.
people don't agree or want to hear it, but that is my strong opinion after studying so many of these incidences.
Unfortunately, we don't have any current, I mean, it may circulate and come out later. We don't have any current video or photographic evidence of the melted metals just yet. However, we do have an eyewitness, Robert Brame, who claims to have viewed the glass himself, and he said it was melted. However, we do need to wait for those photos to come out. So,
also, I don't see those puddles of aluminum alloy. I don't see it. I'm not saying it's not there, but like in Maui, it was very evident. And other things that you just can't know from a picture is what were in those cars and if any accelerants, cause the temperatures to be higher. And also this picture does give me pause because it is very black. It doesn't have that signature white powder everywhere.
There is also something that could be considered to be inaccurate in this photo, and that is the text that says near San Francisco. So Tracy, California is 60 miles east of San Francisco and about 40 miles south of Sacramento. However, Associated Press seems to think that 60 miles is still nearby. So it is not in or really near San Francisco, but San Francisco is one of the nearby cities if you consider 60 miles to be near. All right, so let's see, we're going to keep going through these photos. This is just a farther back angle of that property, and this is the, like I said, the end of the driveway with the cars that have been melted, and there appears to be some semblance of a structure that remains. It was not completely burned away. So yes, it does indicate that there was combustion that did occur here. However, the house itself looks like there was also evidence of calcination as well. Okay, so this is a slightly more zoomed out image that shows that property being the only property that burned. And as we zoom out a little farther, you can see that it basically followed along the property lines. Now, this would be a natural occurrence if the firefighters were trying to protect the neighbor, if the firefighters were present at the time and trying to keep the fire from spreading from one property to the next. So it could be possible that the water along the fence line kept it from spreading. Although I believe on the left there doesn't appear to be a fence line, it still could be that the firefighters were more trying to protect one property versus the one that was already a total loss. All right, so we actually do have a photo of the house beforehand. This is that same house, and it shows the house on fire. So there was a house there that actually did used to be a house. And then on the left here, we can see a tree. And the tree appears to be completely energized from top to bottom, as if every single square inch of it is burning simultaneously.
Which is not indicative of a dew technology.
It's not necessarily indicative of a dew technology. High winds can also catch the entire length of a tree or a pole on fire like that. But I do have some video that I want to play of this fire as it occurred, and then we will keep going. Also notice that the stick pointing out of the ground is equally on fire along its entire length, which could be done from the wind, but wind is not the only thing that can produce that. Okay, so that was the house that was burning, and the tree was also burning. So, we want to look a little bit closer at the trees and how they burned to see if it was just to see how it burned.
Heat still rising from the ground. Logs of wood hollowed out and burning from within. Logs of wood hollowed out and burning from within. Logs of wood hollowed out and burning from within.
Okay, so we don't yet have a very good photo of these logs that were hollowed out and burned from within, but the news reporter, thought to mention that, maybe either because it was unusual or just because that's how it happened.
Well, Shane, you need to explain why the fire with trees is sometimes indicative of a dew weapon or not. I don't think a lot of people understand how that's different.
Okay, well, without speculating, I will try to say that those who claim that dew fires burn differently claim that trees will burn from the inside out. And there are photos from other fires of just such a thing happening, of the outside of the tree being intact while the inside of the tree was hollowed out from a burn that occurred on the interior of the tree, but not the exterior. Most normal fires do not burn from the inside out. They burn from the outside in. I don't know if you've ever had a campfire and watched how it burns, but it always burns from the outside and then burns to the inside.
And that's because the inside of these logs and branches tends to have more moisture, which attracts the energy from the dew weapon or whatever. So that's why it will concentrate more in the inner part of a branch.
Yes. So allegedly, metals and polar molecules like water molecules are more susceptible to microwaves. When metals are struck, do reflect microwaves, but the microwave itself induces electrical current within the metals. So the metals will begin to spark. They will also heat up due to resistive heating because the movement of electrons within the metals produces friction and causes heat, which is radiated as infrared. So when microwaves strike metals, they induce electric current, which throws sparks, and they also induce electrical resistive heating, which gives off infrared energy in the form of heat energy as a radiative heat source. All right, so now I'm going to show Oh, okay. So yeah, this is a photo from Maui, actually. This is a tree in Lahaina, Maui during the fire they had. And this tree was also burning from the inside. I just wanted to show that it's a similar burn pattern to Tracy, California. And I'm not going to speculate as to whether that's natural or artificial. Okay, so now the next thing, and this is another area that is not the property that contained the home, but this is another property that did suffer some sort of damage. So within the burn zone here on the left, you can see that the grass has burned to a black charcoal ash, which indicates potentially a natural normal fire. However, we have a couple of, it's either boats or vehicles there at the center top that were reduced to a white ash. And we also have some more white ash near the base of the trees there. But another very peculiar thing I wanted to point out is that the car that's on the grassy area that did not burn, there is a burn spot around the car, and there appears to be a small dinghy boat that's laying upside down in front of the car as well. And for some reason, just within a 2 or 3 foot radius of this car and boat, the grass did burn, but it didn't burn anywhere else. That would almost be indicative of the car itself being a radiative heat source. Now, I don't know how the car would do that without some sort of external induction, which would be speculative on my part. So I'm just going to leave it there. All right, so now we have a video of this very area, which I also want to show because it will show a little bit more details. So as they zoom in on the truck, look at the area next to the truck. The area next to the truck is actually not burned, and it almost matches the shadow of the sun. It almost looks like a reverse shadow around the truck, as if the truck itself actually prevented the grass underneath it from being caught on fire. So yeah, it's very strange burn patterns. So the car, so around the car on the right, the grass actually did burn within 2 or 3 feet. But as we saw in that last clip, the grass around the truck did not burn within or about the same radius. All right, so now we have some other structures that burned. So only one house burned, but there were other structures that burned, and I'm going to go ahead and show those now. All right, so this looks to be an industrial zone or area that had what appears to be warehouse buildings. Now, I've worked in a lot of warehouses before, and these usually are metal rib construction with like corrugated metal roofs and walls a lot of times. So these buildings are not very wood-based. You know, they're almost all concrete and metal. As you can see, there's almost no walls, and the only semblance of a structure that's left is the steel alloy framing. So yeah, all you've got left is steel alloy frame and a concrete foundation. And these look to be, I think these were shipping containers possibly that have completely burned out, and all that's left is like one end of the trailer. So yeah, you see a lot of shipping containers here, and it looks like these were probably intermodal shipping containers that have all just completely burned down. Now, if you're familiar with an intermodal shipping container, it is made of metal. Yeah, the news clips that we had shown earlier said a couple of outbuildings also burned in addition to the house. But this looks like more than just a couple of outbuildings. This looks like an entire industrial business that has suffered severe losses. Now, here's another picture of these buildings that have steel alloy ribbed frame construction, and the roof material also appears to be like a corrugated metal of some sort. And there is some more photos that I want to show that are perhaps some similarities from Maui. So this is a car from Maui. And the reason I want to show this picture is because I want to draw attention to the very faint circle around this car. So if you look at the base of the car, about 2 to perhaps 3 feet from the car, there is a lighter spot on the pavement. This is actually where the asphalt had boiled and flaked away. And you can see that it's darker. The street is actually darker after you go about 3 to 4 feet away from the car. And that's where the asphalt is actually still intact. But as you approach the car, when you get within a couple feet of the car, it's actually bare concrete with very little asphalt remaining. And that is because the car appears to have been a radiative heat source that only burned stuff within a few foot radius of the car. I do want to talk right now about the inverse square law. So radiative heat sources, the energy decreases exponentially according to the distance from the source. And so radiative heat, such as like, say, when you're using a microwave, the radiation from a microwave oven is much worse if you're standing there directly next to it, say, watching your food cook through the window, than if you were 4 feet away. So the energy drops off exponentially. So 2 feet away is actually 4 times better than being 1 foot away. So that's why, like, the farther you get away from the car, you see a very drastic difference in the quality of the pavement there. All right. So, and then we also have some more photos that I want to show. These are photos from Tracy, California. So this is a fence post that has nails in it, and you can see that the wood itself only burned in proximity to the nail. And then here's another one. These photos were taken by Robert Brame earlier this week, and he visited the Tracy fire twice, and he got pictures of the damage, which he will be posting on Facebook. All right, so you can see this fence post only burned where the nails were, and we have another fence post that only burned where the nails were. And we have another fence post that only burned where it was touching metal. The metal fence appears to have been what caused this fence post to burn. And then we have another one that, they all start to look alike. But then here's a picture from Maui of a very similar thing. So this fence had nails where the horizontal posts met the vertical post. And you can see that that's the only place where it appears to be blackened and charred is where these nails would attach the horizontal slats to the vertical posts. Another thing I want to show is a picture of a tire from Tracy, California. Now, most tires that were attached to rims were completely disappeared. Like the rubber completely burned away unless it was a polyester tire. So these polyester cord tires seem to be mostly intact. However, if it was a steel belted radial, then the rubber itself would be completely burned away. All right. So I think there's only like one more photo that I want to show, and it's slightly off topic. But this is a photo of utility trucks that arrived after the fire to do repairs. And I just wanted to note that the trucks happen to be blue in color. And we have one more video clip.
Before we move on, though, do you think those are downed utility poles that you see there? Or
these do look like PG&E trucks. However, I don't know why they're blue, but it does appear to be some sort of electrical utility trucks, possibly Pacific Gas and Electric. And I do believe that they are either removing or repairing what looks to be a downed power line or down telephone pole.
That's one of those consistencies we see with these unusual fires or down power lines. I personally, just my thought, and I know Shane and I disagree. I think a lot of this damage was just normal fire damage. I think maybe there are a couple of examples of directed energy being used, but there are just some problems I have with it. Like, why would they do this? Why do they need that land burned? They evacuated people. No one, I think 2 firefighters got hurt, but no one died. They didn't try to block people in, and very few residences. Actually, one residence was destroyed, and that's it. So those are things that make me think maybe it was an intentional fire, but it wasn't like Lahaina or Chile.
We actually do agree that the great majority of this fire was done by combustive flames, which are very natural. Whether it was an accident or intentional, that's up for speculation. But I will agree with you that the great majority of the fire damage was done by natural looking combustive flames. However, some of the properties that were shown, like the house in particular, to me appears to be calcinated, which is not the normal way that a combustive flame would result. So like a combustive flame doesn't really calcinate things. It just combusts them into a black carbon soot. Whereas, alternative forms of heating would be able to calcinate things into a solid, white powder without actually going through the combustion phase. Which we do see some evidence of that, but I will agree with you that the majority of the damage in this fire looks like it was done by combustive flames. All right, so I just want to throw one more little tidbit out there before we end this, and that is a little video clip that we have here.
Now, the fire started near the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, and they do research there on nuclear weapons and climate tech, but we're told the flames did not reach the lab, and thankfully there is no damage.
All right. So the reason I wanted to point that out was because they do also do climate tech there, he said. And that was Ryan Tracy reporting from Tracy, California. All right. Back to you, Tracy.
All right. So I'll give my opinion just from what I've seen right now, from what I heard. I don't think this was like a sophisticated, do attack, because there's just not enough justification for it. If anything, this was to kind of prep the public that it is fire season. So when another one comes, don't be so surprised. And to put out the climate change narrative. Now, when they say climate change, I think they're referring to this whole global warming leads to fires, hurricanes, tornadoes, hail, and things like that. I understand that climate change is happening. I just don't believe it's because of the reasons we've been told by the mainstream. But yeah, I don't think a lot of this damage was due damage. I do think it's more of a psychological event to kind of get people mentally and psychologically geared up for a bigger fire. That's my opinion.
And I do agree with you for the most part on that. So it was June 1st was the beginning of fire season, and they had a giant fire, which is very convenient that it happened on the very first day of fire season. So it does, to me, I'm going to speculate and say that it seems like it might be intentional for that reason. However, and I also agree with you that most of the damage does look like a natural combustive flame, but there are a few outliers, like the property that was damaged, the house that was reduced into a white ash. And Robert Brame, the forensic arborist, he actually did visit that site twice. And he said that there were, like, such as metal fences that were outside of the fire footprint that were also damaged. We know that metal will conduct electricity, and it can spread the damage outside of the fire footprint. And he also did go and examine the glass in the vehicles, and he confirmed that the glass was melted. Now, whether or not it was broken before it melted may be irrelevant, because, in order to melt glass, like I say, it would require an energy equivalent of around 2,700 degrees Fahrenheit. And wood fires don't do that. And even accelerants don't do that unless there's enough fuel to burn it long enough to get it to melt.
But something I want to put out there, and this is what I truly believe from the very beginning, from talking to experts, is that unless you are there when the fire is happening, you know exactly what's in there, and you have a thermometer, you really cannot tell what the temperature in that car is.
I would like to point out that temperature readings are not necessarily a measure of energy density. So, for example, there is a type of flame called an oxyhydrogen flame, which actually burns much hotter than its temperature. So the temperature of an oxyhydrogen flame can be also known as Brown's gas, can be about 130 degrees Celsius. And you can actually pass your hand through the flame without getting burned. However, that very same flame will melt tungsten, which normally has a melting point of 10,000 degrees. So the fact that you can pass your hand through a flame that's capable of melting tungsten means that there's something a little bit more than just temperature involved in the melting of these materials.
Right. Right. Unless we're there seeing it, knowing what's in that car and taking a temperature reading.
Well, that's what I'm saying is even a temperature reading would be somewhat incomplete, because let's say that you're burning, let's say you're melting tungsten with an oxyhydrogen torch, right? Your temperature reading is going to read 130 Celsius. However, people say that tungsten only melts at 10,000 Fahrenheit, which is much higher than 130 Celsius. So there is something a little bit more than just temperature-based melting going on here. So the temperature might actually be lower, but if the energy density is high enough, then it can melt at a low temperature.
Okay. Well, if the chat is going, maybe let us know what you think, because I think this is one that to me, there's just not enough evidence that this was a dew fire. I don't think that was the purpose of it. I feel like there would have been some sort of plan for this area. There would be better evidence, and there would have been more suspicious behavior by the officials. And I haven't seen any evidence of that. And I think going forward, this is kind of going to be the norm, because the public is being, censored from what's actually happening. And so this kind of might be the new norm going forward after Lahaina, after all that evidence came out. But, for those of you listening, what do you think? Do you think this was mainly a dew fire or something else? Or was there another purpose for it? But I'd be interested to hear what everyone has to say. So
I'll tell you what, if I didn't know what I know about directed energy, I would almost be buying the climate change narrative myself, because this does seem pretty extreme.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there'll be another one. We'll see what happens and try to figure them out from there. So for everyone watching, thank you guys so much for being here. Please subscribe if you have not yet already, and like, comment, and share this video, and get the word out. Let people know that there are, weather events going on that we need to be really aware of. And if you are in an area where something like this is going on, try to get as much footage and evidence that you can and save it, and just, put it somewhere, or send it to us. That would be very helpful.
Yes, please do.
So with that, thank you guys so much for being here. And I don't know what our next video is. I think it might be another TOD corridor plan in Hawaii. But
or we might follow up on the bribery as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, some bribery charges going on in Hawaii. So that's going to do it for today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you all soon. Bye.